What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is April 4th, 2024. It's 4:12 in the afternoon. And what an amazing day it ended up becoming. I labeled today ELZWORTH Day. And everybody's probably wondering, what the hell is ELZWORTH Day? Well, I'm going to tell you what ELZWORTH Day is. And it will forever be, to me anyway, April 4th. 2024. ELZWORTH is one of our members, and I will explain to you when we get to this point the trade that he brought up in the form of a question when we get there. But it ended up being the best percentage return on a trade I've ever had. And to show my gratitude, I tried to offer him through Zelle a piece of that particular pie. He politely and wholeheartedly rejected by saying, "You've offered and given me enough as a member," which was an amazing response. So I've decided that I would like to give him, at least, since he won't take my money, a lifetime membership. Now, ELZWORTH, you left the room before we decided, or I decided that I would like to do that for you. So I'm asking you here in front of God and everybody, if you would like to accept that on behalf of my appreciation for you bringing that question up on a trade that I probably wouldn't have taken or wouldn't have even considered, simply because the day up until that point was pretty slow, and a lot of people were already done for the day, but it just was the right time. It was the right opportunity. And because of you, not only myself, but a whole bunch of other people got to ride a massive move to the downside. And by saying that, I'm sure you guys realize now when that became a thing. But let's go ahead and launch charts and talk about the day and what we were seeing. So ELZWORTH, if you're willing to accept that, let me know tomorrow when we see each other in the Discord. Without further ado, let's launch the charts. So, obviously, we had a pretty flat pre-market until after the 8:30 reports, and then I didn't see anything that was amazing in the report, so I couldn't really justify why this move to the upside was happening. Doesn't matter. What was saying to me is calls are definitely the way to go, and puts are off the table. And if I'm going to take puts, then I'm going to wait for a pullback that seems logical enough to consider it in the first place. So let's get into the day. Okay, so right off the bat, we were expecting ADD to be opening very, very green. Not only did it open very green, it ran like another 600 points on the opening candle, which meant that at market open, a good portion of the market that was already green just pushed straight up on the open. We kind of saw that on SPY, but we were also very close to a line of resistance at open. So there's no call line on the chart. And the reason there's no call line on the chart is simple. I was saying, guys, puts are not the thing. You better wait for the reason. I posted this at 9 o'clock in the morning. We talked about it all through pre-market. We talked about it at 9:25 when we were trying to find a reason for puts and a reason for calls. Guys, the market's very strong, very green. Everything's happy. Don't play puts because you can't think it could go higher. Okay? If you're going to buy calls, this was exactly what I said. I don't know how you guys want me to mark this on the chart. You can look for aggressive entries on support somewhere around 523.23 to 523.15, somewhere in this range, hoping for the move to continue up to the resistance. Nice short trade. Or the ideal situation would be a pullback somewhere near this yellow line, looking for a move, hopefully back up to the original target high. But at this point, we had made support here. That might act as resistance. That's why this is here. Not only is it there because of that, but Qs were struggling to get back above this line of support that had broken also. So there was a trade to be taken off support here. If you wanted to be aggressive, you got out here. That was roughly 19.5 to 20% trade. if you got out of the line. You could have got a little more if you got out the wick. We pull back down to support. Another entry opportunity here, giving you a little bit more than that, closer to a 30% return if you took your profits. Once we realized the Qs were having a hard time moving higher through their resistance, SPY was having a hard time moving through what was support, acting as resistance. Guys, don't push your luck. The chart wasn't looking good for calls. Started at first it was, but then it started to not look great, but still not weak enough to just jump into puts. Now, I was being asked, Jimmy, when would you be interested in puts? I said, well, you better at least wait for a break below 522.79 minimum. That's a super aggressive trade. Okay, we will have taken out this level of support here. We would take out this level, which is where that number comes from. And you could see we broke one level, got straight down to that level, and started to hold it as support. Now, around that time, Qs were sitting right here on this line, trying to move lower, having a very difficult time doing so. Right in here. And I think it was exactly at 9:54. I said, guys, I'm just speaking my mind here. Q's struggling to move higher, making me believe that we should see a move to the downside from here. We'd be looking for our first line of support, but would love to see 522.26. Some people got into this trade because we finally got below that line of support. Some people got in because lower highs, sitting on support, they're expecting the move to move down. Super aggressive either way. But more importantly, we're also coming up to 10 o'clock. And this is still a counter trend trade on the day, right? We weren't assuming that the move to the upside was over at this point. The market was very strong this morning, very strong this morning. So my rule for counter trend trades always is, if you're going to get into a counter trend trade, at least respect the trend enough to say, hey, I'm going to get in at a break of support in this particular instance, or whatever it is, whether you're buying resistance, looking for the next resistance up. But please consider taking your profits when you get down to the first level, in this case, of support from where you get in. Respect the chart enough for that, or the trend on the day, or the strength of the market, whatever it is. So when I take a counter trend trade, I'm looking to get in and get out at the first target low, okay? Or high if you're buying calls. Then we had the opportunity to draw one of our red-green boxes, okay? We ended up getting into a 20-cent range. And like we have several days in the past, every time we got up to the red one, we were rejecting. Buy your puts there or sell your calls there. And every time we got to the green, buy your calls there and sell your puts there. Bounce, 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 bounce. Okay. Then we started to put in lower highs. That's when you got to start wondering, are the sellers getting stronger? That usually means that the support eventually is going to fail. Not always, but eventually. We talk about this all day long, guys. I say this very simply. Lower highs are bad for what? And collectively as a group, they all say bad for calls. Higher lows are bad for what? Collectively as a group, they know puts. Is that the case 100% of the time? No. Is it the case most of the time? Yes. Guys, we're dealing with probabilities here. There is no way to guarantee anything. Okay? So just get used to looking at the patterns. When you put in lower highs, okay, it usually means the sellers are getting a little stronger or the buyers are getting weaker. Either way, it's not a good time for calls. Okay? It's worth looking at. Just get used to seeing that pattern and then watch how often it holds true. That's all I'm asking you to do. Okay? And true to form, the support fails this time. Some people probably still bought calls. What are the rules if you're going to buy puts in the red and calls in the green? If you close outside of the box to the upside in your inputs, stop out. If you close outside of the bottom of the box in calls, stop out. It's a nice, tight area for stop losses. Okay? We break through the bottom. We were still hoping to get down to 522.26. We didn't get there. I think the Qs at this point, 11.13, were sitting on a support level. Nope. They also too couldn't make it lower at that time. As you could see, we had an alert down there hoping it would get there. It never did. So you just got to have your stops in place. And we got back into this silly range. Now, while we were all the way over here, one of our members, Dan K was his name, as a matter of fact, said, Jimmy, I know we're interested in the channel, and I know we're interested in calls and puts, but where would you feel comfortable buying calls if you were going to buy calls? I said, well, at this point, two criteria need to be true. Number one, I want the Qs closed above this level of resistance, which was 445.62. Now, if you look to your right, we only have that for the first time at 1138. That's criteria number one. Criteria number two was I want to see a candle close above this red box. Criteria number two. So we had our first thing take place at 1138, and it stayed above it once it did. Never came back. And then we had our second criteria, ever so slightly, happen at 1144. If you were patient enough, and by the way, just like if you were in puts, a close above this box is your stop loss. If you're in calls, a close below that box is your stop loss. Clockwork. You got in here, nice, tight stop loss, and you're playing with the strength of the market. Better odds. First level of resistance came from right over here. Okay? Just be aware of that. It's there. Okay? Qs at this time, I think they were hitting a level of resistance as well. 1153. Yes. So the Qs, no, they just broke. So the Qs had room to the upside. Oh, wait, right here. This was the Qs resistance I was worried about. This right here. This is the one we couldn't get back above here and allowed people to stay in their puts from earlier. Okay? So I expected Qs to struggle to get through there again. They ultimately ended up breaking through it. Okay, we move up. That was why that first exit was there. If you want to wait to stop out, move your stops up, whatever you want to do. The next move we're looking for is up to the yellow line. Okay, we move up, right up to the yellow line. At this point, this was a 20% trade. At this point, it was 50%. At this point, it ended up being just over 100% trade. Now, why were you getting out there, you ask? Well, let's go take a look at the Qs. At 1209 and 1210, we were getting very close to their next level of resistance. And as we get closer to those, every time I tell them, guys, Qs are coming up on resistance, be prepared to move your stops up or potentially take your profits. Whatever the case is, just do it. Either way, ended up being the trade of the day at the time. Perfect entry. Option number one to get out at 20%. Option number two was right around 49%. Option number three was just over 100%. Pick your poison, guys. There was no reason to get out early if you didn't want to. There was no reason to get stopped out. There was no reason to lose money on the trade, period. Okay? Trail your stops if you want to hold on to these things a little bit longer. Then we started to move sideways. I was at lunchtime at this point. I got back right around 115, 110, somewhere around in here. Okay, we come back, having a hard time getting it back above 523.54. We start putting in lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. We fall back into our original mess of a 20-cent range and right through the bottom of it. It's at this point that my good friend Ellsworth, I love you, by the way. Ellsworth says, Jimmy, is this a good time to consider puts, or are there too many levels of support below on the Qs? Okay. Now, one of the biggest things we talk about, guys, in our room, and if you're in our room, you already know this. When is the best time to buy puts? You want to be in a downtrend, waiting for a pullback to resistance for your entry point. But it's not just SPY we're looking for being at resistance or in a downtrend. We want the help, the support, the confidence of the Qs doing the same thing, okay? So as we move down, he had asked me right around this point right here, 146. I said, if you're going to buy puts, at least wait for a pullback. So we start moving up. Now we recognize that we're at resistance on SPY. We switch over to the Qs, and at the moment, Qs was also at resistance. I think that was 152, right? 151. I said, guys, this is the time to give it a go. Qs are trending down. We're pulling back to resistance where we're expecting the Qs at least to make it down to 445.21. And if a candle closes below that, we're looking for the next one down, so on and so forth. There's your entry candle. If you're playing with the trend, buying at a pullback with the support of the Qs doing the same thing. If Qs have room to move, and this was the caveat, if Qs have room to move off of any resistance, take the risk. Both of the things we look at were trending down. ADD had been trending down since the open. Let's consider it. We get into the trade here. A whole bunch of us got into the trade here. Some folks waited for our put line. He was asking, somebody else was asking, maybe it wasn't ELZWORTH. Is the put line, maybe that's what he asked. I think that's what it was. Jimmy, is the put line still in play even though the Qs have support below us? I said, well, let's wait for them both to be at resistance on a pullback, and that's when you should be considering taking the trade. Period. End of story. So if you waited for the put line to get breached, that happened just a few minutes after we got in. And I don't know if you guys know this, but we had a Fed speaker at 2 o'clock today. And the Fed speaker said what I've been saying for months, and other Fed speakers have been saying, I don't know why today the market decided to react to it, that we're most likely not going to get rate cuts this year. Would you imagine that? You could have watched TV for the last 6 months, and the market has been telling you, and bankers have been telling you, and everybody who should know better has been telling you, yeah, we're going to get 7 rate cuts this year. Then it went to 4. Then it went to 3. Then it went to maybe less, and now it's looking like 0. Why is this a surprise? We're nowhere near where they want to be. And I think they're trying to talk the market into fixing itself so that they don't have to do anything about it. But either way, that is the information from the Fed guy on TV that triggered this sell-off. Now, if you got in here or the call or the put line and you just hung on, there was no reason to get out. Once we got to our first target low on Qs, which is at 158, okay, we suggested the idea, hey, normally we'd be interested in taking profits here. This was a pretty strong move. If we close below the next one, as long as we stay below it, hold on to the trade. Once we started getting down here and through our 444.69, I put this alert down here way earlier in the morning. We closed below that line. I said, guys, this thing's moving so fast and you're up so much at this point that it would be silly to not give it a chance to keep going. And keep going, did it ever? I stopped drawing lines. Once we got all the way down to yesterday's, I was thrilled that we even got to close the gap today. We sold off like crazy. And every one of these circles is either SPY hitting support or Qs hitting support, giving everybody the opportunity to get out of their trades. I myself got out here at 217. That ended up being a 673% return. Okay. If you got in here, or even at the close of this candle, you still made 580% at that same level. Okay? It continued to drop way more. Guys, this trade, depending on when you got in, ended up paying anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000%. That's one of those dream trades that most of us never get to take. And it happened so fast that you basically felt silly for getting out. And then there's times that you feel like, when is this going to stop? Maybe I should stop pressing my luck, which is how I felt when I decided to get out. Some of them ended up buying pullbacks, riding it down even farther. We made it through all the way down to yesterday's low of day, blew through that like it was nobody's business. Guys, the market is not happy. It's not happy that it was wrong. Okay, it's been pricing in rate cuts for a long time now. And now reality is setting in. Things aren't as great as they think they are. They never have been. Okay? This is a pullback that was needed. I don't know if it's done, if it's going to continue. I don't care. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But for anybody who caught all of, some of, most of, congratulations. Okay? Congratulations. That was by far, my highest returning trade of my trading career since I've been doing this. And I have ELZWORTH to thank for it. So ELZWORTH, please accept my gift of a lifetime membership to Trading Decoded. Let me know tomorrow if that's okay with you. For those of you who missed out on all of this, we were talking about that also. If you didn't get into this move up here, it is very, very, very difficult to be interested in playing after a drop like this, okay? You either FOMO into the trade and oftentimes end up buying the bottom, or it's moved so much that you say to yourself, there can't be any more room left, or if there is, not much. It's very hard to be confident to take puts after a move like this, okay? It's the same thing for wanting to play calls. I knew the market was strong and I was interested in calls. I just have a hard time doing it after a $3 move in pre-market. I justify it by saying, at least give me some kind of a pullback to buy so that I have a reasonable chance to make it right back up to where we were prior to the pullback, because that's where my target would be. Happened to be at our third target high. Okay, SPY took out all of my targets in pre-market, which is annoying. Okay, and then I just stopped drawing targets after we got through this one until people started asking me, Jimmy, where's the next ones down from here? And I'm like, you really want me to draw more? I mean, I even stopped drawing exit points because it got to be so ridiculous. But it still respected these levels when we got to them. And it's still doing it in after hours now. I don't know if we continue to sell off into pre-market tomorrow or after hours. It doesn't matter. We don't hold things overnight because we don't know what's going to happen. And if it does continue down, you can't do shit about it till 9:30 in the morning. So with that said, what an amazing day for a lot of people. This was much needed for a lot of people. At that point, a lot of people had already walked away from the chart for the day because it was not the greatest one. Yeah, so lots of things happened today. With that said, hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, we'd love to have you. There's a link down below. Congrats to everybody who caught that massive move to the downside. I hope it was well worth the wait, and I hope it was well worth the risk. I mean, it's much cheaper to play this late in the day. There's no doubt about it. The chart at this time wasn't moving very fast until it was, right? It was a responsible time to take a trade and then a lucky time to have been in the trade. That's all there was. Would anybody have assumed or guessed a move like this was going to happen? Hell no, you wouldn't have. But if you were in it, it moved so fast. You got up in profit so quickly and so big that you had no choice but to say, man, with this much momentum, can it keep going? And then you hit a weird spot where you say, I feel uneasy about how well this has worked out. I would be pissed if I started to give away too much of that. I know that's a problem I have. It's what I do every single day, right? I usually take base hits, guys, but this happened too fast well, if you were in the community, you heard it. I was screaming, guys, please don't sell. Please don't sell. You have room for pullbacks. Please don't sell. Hold on to this thing. Get paid. It just kept breaking levels. And then it broke a whole lot more. Dude, what a massive move. Never mind. Also, if you like what you get for the free time here, please consider becoming a paying member. All right, we're not a call out service, so please don't get confused with that. Yes, there are many times where I call out my personal trades. Yes, there are plenty of times where we talk about these trades far in advance. Doesn't mean I'm taking them. Okay, but it also means I didn't take these calls. Yet I told everybody an hour. We were talking about this 1 hour before. What would I need to see to buy calls? Guys, I'm not going to tell you what I think is going to happen if I don't believe it's going to happen? What good does that do me? Oh, well, Jimmy, if you believe it's going to happen, why don't you take the trade? Because I was already up enough on the day. Well, if that was the case, why'd you take this trade over here? Because it looked a lot better than any other trade that we had taken at this point. Okay, it was worth the risk to me. Cheap contracts, looking for a much smaller move that gave us the opportunity to make a lot more of a move. Okay, I'm not going to apologize for that. We talked about it. We called it out when it was happening. You either got in or you didn't. It doesn't matter if I do or if I don't. I'm not selling my trades. I'm not selling the idea that you're going to get rich overnight. In fact, I'm one of the only guys out there that's not out here touting how easy it is and just follow this particular indicator and you'll make 1,000% overnight. Guys, that's not trading. I'm trying to teach you when the responsible time to get in and out of trades is based on technical analysis, based on price action. Simple lines, support, resistance, looking for confluence from the cues. That's it. Do we catch every trade? No, we don't. Do we talk about every trade in advance? Most of the time. If these arrows are on the charts, they're trades we talked about in advance every time. We find trades that are not talked about in advance all the time. Okay? It's not like we don't talk about other things other than these 4 or 5 arrows. These are just the trades we find before they're trades. Okay, you can choose to take them if you want or not. But the one thing I want everybody to know, and we talked about this morning because somebody gave me shit for buying calls sooner than the conservative entry. Well, why didn't you wait till the orange line, Jimmy? Because I told you guys I'd be interested in buying calls on a pullback to support. The more conservative support is down here at the yellow line. Fine. I'm trading with my money. You trade with your money. I'm going to share with you my thought process. You only trade what works for your thought process. Don't follow other people's trades. You will never treat them the same. In fact, the guy who waited for the right trade got to make more money than I did on my trade. So how about them apples? All right? Stop assuming that the only way you can be good at this is by following somebody else who already is good. That makes no difference. Most of the people in my community have come from call-out services that cost a lot more and don't work. They don't work. Do you know why they don't work? It's not because the guy who's doing the calling out doesn't know what he's doing. It's because they're not your trades. You don't feel comfortable taking them because you don't even know why you're taking them. That's the problem. So when you're doing something you know you shouldn't be in your day-to-day life, are you not paranoid? If you know you're not supposed to be on your cell phone at work and you're on your cell phone, are you not sitting over there hiding like, shit, I hope my boss doesn't come in and see me? Yes, you are. Why? Because you know if you get caught, you're going to be in trouble. So you might shorthand your text messages. You might answer with one-letter responses to your spouse or your wife or your husband. Right? It's no different in trading. If you're taking somebody else's trade, you're not going to treat it the same. I have conviction in what I'm doing. If you may not have the same conviction that I do, which means you're not going to hold as long as me. You're not going to stop out with me. You're not going to take your profits when I do. You need to understand why to take a trade and make it work for you. Trust me, it will work out much better for you. My community is based on learning, not copying. I don't want a group of dependents. I want you guys to be responsible for your trades and learn how to do it with comfort, with confidence, because that's the only way you're ever going to make it in this business. That's a fact. So, If you're signing up with the understanding that this is a call out service, save your money. I will always do the call put scenario. You can assume that I'm going to be taking those trades. Whether I tell you or not, the only time, and I tell my members this, the only time I'm not taking the call or put scenario is if I tell you I'm not going to take it before we get there. If that's what you need to hear to feel confident in taking the trade, it's not the right reason, but you don't have to ask me. If you do ask me, I'll give you the answer. Yes, I'm in the trade. Well, why'd you get in, Jimmy? Because we crossed the line that I said, if we cross it, I would be interested in calls. Likewise, if we get to the put line, and I didn't tell you guys I don't like it because we're too close to support on the Qs, I'm taking the puts. That's as close to a call out service as I'm ever going to be. Up until then, guys, if we cross this line, I expect us to move down to this line. You either believe that or you don't. Watch and listen and watch what happens based on my words. Whether you take the trade or not, just listen and see if it happens more often than not. I want you to develop the confidence as to why I say the things I say. Guys, if we break this support, I expect us to move down to this line. This is not a secret. If we're trending down and we break a line of support, my full expectation, 100% of the time, as long as Qs is not sitting on a support level itself, is that we're going to make it down to the next level of support. Does it happen every time? No. Here's a perfect example of a time it didn't. We broke support in a downtrend. It didn't make it to the next support. Big deal. You have a stop loss in place so that it doesn't kill you. Right? But what you don't want to do is wait till the bottom to buy it. The move is gone. There's not enough room left below to get to where we were trying to go in the first place. Okay? Likewise, if we're in an uptrend, just like this trade that we talked about literally over an hour in advance, we break resistance on one, we break resistance on the other. What do I expect to happen? We're going to run up to the next resistance. Well, there it is. Right there. From A to B. From B to C, which was a resistance. Not only here, but also on the Qs. Okay, does it last forever? No, it never will, except for that drop today. Okay, eventually the move stops. So how do you protect yourself in the event that it doesn't keep going up? We trail your stops. Lock in profits. Immediately after getting into this trade and getting off this line, I reminded everybody, at this point, you're already near a profit target. You either lock in those profits or move your stops to break even so that there's zero way for you to lose money in this trade. Zero. That happened over here as well. Okay? And here. I'm not trying to get you to lose money. I don't want you to take a whole lot of risk to make a little. The minute we get off of our entry point, which was perfect on 1, 2, and 3 occasions, you know what the best part is about the right entry? Is that it's also a great spot to base your stop loss off of. Not right on your entry line, but very close to it. You will know if your entry was the right spot. If you get into your trade, okay, and you know that there's a pullback level that is supposed to save your ass, that pullback level should have been your entry point, right? If you were trying to buy calls and you did it up here, you're saying to yourself, well, as long as we stay above that 522.99 line, I'm safe. Well, that would be a great reason to stay into those calls, but why not buy it closer to that line so that if you do close below it, you lose a lot less? If this is going to be your stop loss, why wouldn't it be considered a potential entry point? Use your brains, guys. It's hard to do. We want to buy calls after a move's already moving in our favor. That doesn't work all the time. Okay? But if you buy at a point where you would be considered stopping out, the only place you can go is very close to a stop. So you stop out early, or by the time you get to the point where might you want to get into your trade, you're already in profit. Okay? So I know we tried to close this video down a little earlier and then I go off on a tangent like I always do. I apologize for that, guys. So once again, if you got anything useful out of this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like, join our Discord community. Well, I'd love to have you. There's a link down below. Your first week's completely free. Completely free. If you like what you get for those free weeks, I don't change the way I do things just because you're here for free. And then all of a sudden you become a paying member and then like a light switch, the thing changes. That would be stupid because I have people showing up new every single day. And I couldn't keep track of who I need to pretend in front of and who I don't. Yeah, so I hope you all had a fantastic day. Till tomorrow. I love you guys. See you.